AI and gaming are becoming more and more connected. Game dev is becoming so easy that simple to moderate technical features can be built with almost no coding knowledge. Gaming, and all industries for that matter, will evolve over the next few years. Hey everyone, at Caveman here, and I just had a crazy conversation with an individual that is trying to learn and teach everything he can so that we can grow with this technology. I was watching this video from Blue Drake on a new VFX that he built using AI and is providing a course on how you could do it also. I mean, as a content creator, I want to have flaming hands or hold up this ice cube. There's so many cool things that it opens the whole realm of being able to do this really cool live stream. And so I want to do that. Sign me up. I hopped in his Discord, which is just getting started. And Connor was there just chatting with everyone who joined. This guy has a YouTube channel with 1 million subs, and he launched a game about a year ago with 3 million downloads. I was not expecting him to be free, and I wasn't gonna miss an opportunity to talk to him. And he actually agreed just to hop on a call with me right there in the voice chat, and we start having the most pumped up, optimistic conversation about gaming, AI, and even a little bit of Web3, and he said I could record it. So here is a rather unorganized, barely edited video of us just talking about everything this technology is going to bring. It does start in the middle of Connor just popping off, and you will see that I can barely get a word in sometimes. He is just so passionate about this technology, and he does get on camera a little bit later, and you can see it in his face also. But if you are not learning this technology, I'm telling you, you're gonna get left behind. You need to start learning this, or you will be that boomer that can't access your email. I'm telling you, it's that simple. Now, before we get started, if you could hit that like button and subscribe, that'll show me that, hey, this AI technology is also worth covering in our space and that you want that content. Please hit that like button, subscribe. Now, with that, let's get started.
What we are currently building is something that is the first piece of the intelligence puzzle, which has been like the human quandary for forever. And there's so many there's philosophical implications for that. There are, and most importantly, which is what this community is all about, like there are infrastructure, implications for that. There's and again, like I keep telling everybody, whatever your expectations are, they're too low, right? You look at SpaceX and you look at all of the other things that have been happening. We are on a trajectory for the next 10 to 20 years of our life to be crazy, the most unprecedented thing. And I see it. I see where it's going. And I feel like there's a lot of other people, like we're about to head over a cliff, man. I hope what's on the other side of this is good. I really do.
It's optimist or world domination. One or the other.
I'm going to turn my camera on for a second. We're about to head over a cliff. Is that going to be a good thing? Is that going to be a bad thing? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know the answer, but I can tell you this. If we go over that cliff not knowing anything about what this is or how it works, everything will be objectively worse. Like if whatever this is, however it works, everybody it's replacing jobs, it's going to do all of this stuff. Okay, that's great. I don't run the world. I don't make the world. I didn't even, the people that created this technology to begin with and all of this stuff, I didn't make those decisions. It's out there. It's proliferating. We have to learn to live with this. And we have a limited time opportunity to spend as much time as we physically can learning as much about this, so that way whatever comes next is as not bad as possible. Hopefully good. I would like to think that it's good. And I've been telling people, it's like, look, everybody's like, oh, but how am I going to be able to afford groceries? And I'm like, look, man, if we actually worked together properly and you built an automated system that freaking manages the entire food logistical process, you wouldn't need to buy groceries.
You wouldn't need to do anything.
It'd be
delivered,
what is that?
It'd be for free.
And again, Right. What does that mean? All I know is that in the next 10 to 20 years, it will be physically possible to fully automate the food production process. And I feel like when that happens, two things are going to happen. Either everybody's going to be able to make their own food, right? Or everybody's going to have enough understanding in order to participate in that system so that they can still getting those resources, or everybody is going to put their heads in the sand, and the people who are not putting their heads in the sand that are actually going to build those systems are going to take over everything, and they're going to control it all for themselves. Yeah. And we already see that progression, right? Like, we already have a pretty big issue with separation between, like, the 1% and the rest of the world, right? If we ignore this, if we don't take advantage of this situation and learn as much about this as physically possible, that disparity is going to increase by a significant threshold. Because all of my optimal, ideal future is we all understand how this stuff works, so that way, if we, even if that 1% does like carve out the stuff and try to keep us away, we will have enough knowledge where we will also be able to sustain ourselves in the same way, maybe at a smaller scale, whatever. And that's, like you look at human history, that's how it's always been, right? Like, the people that understand this stuff, the people that learn this stuff, are the ones that are going to be able to continue to support themselves. I mean, how many people still have jobs, like driving horse carriages around, right? Yeah, like that, or that job doesn't exist.
If you didn't learn the internet, or like how, like you're a boomer out of work.
Yeah, like you, and again, this isn't me making the rules. I'm not making the rules. I am 100% reactive. People get mad at me about this, like somehow I'm the person that is like doing this to them. And I'm like, look, dude, I am just somebody that has the ability to see maybe a little bit further into the future than other people for some reason. And I am telling you, this is what we need to be focusing on right now. And I know it's inconvenient. I know it's a bad time for everybody, because I know we all had plans and life trajectories and all sorts of stuff. That's great. I'm sorry this is happening now. We need to be learning.
You have to adapt. You have to.
Yeah. It's like it's not even just the internet, right? Because the internet, it's like, imagine if you just avoided the internet and didn't learn the internet, right? This is going to be like that times 20, right? Like,
you didn't even get a job now.
Right. You need to know this. You need to understand this stuff. You need to learn this stuff. If you are not learning this stuff, it's not like, oh, well, I don't need to learn the internet because, like, I'm a cobbler. I don't know. It doesn't, you're like nothing. Everyone needs to be on board with this 100%. And I feel confident that if everybody had that mentality, things will be, I don't want to say good, it'll be less bad.
Yeah.
It could be really good, though. Like, if we do this, but, I don't know, all of human history is people saying that things could be really good and then they go bad. So I don't want to make any promises, but I feel like
a lot of it is.
If we were to work together, if everybody were to approach AI, and not just AI, because the craziest thing about AI is that, like, you look at programming languages like Python and stuff like that. My ability to learn Python ever since AI has come out has exploded 100 times. And a lot of people see this as cheating, because they're like, dude, but like using AI to learn Python, that's cheating because it steals code. And it's like, dude, it doesn't. Do you have any idea how much free public documentation for Python there is? It doesn't need. Yep. Yeah, it doesn't need to steal. And on top of that, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are models that steal 100%, but that doesn't mean that, like, all AI is intrinsically, like, stealing. It's not that, because let me tell you this. Compared to, because I used to have to program the old-fashioned way where you go into the documentation. I mean, could you imagine being a programmer back in the day where you actually had to go to a freaking library and check out a book in order to, like, figure out the function syntax? Do you have any idea, like, how freaking slow? Like, could you imagine still doing that? Like, even 5 years ago, like, I'm going to learn Python. I'm going to go, like, there's a new freaking, like, function library update. And it's like, you have to go check out the new thing in order to, like, nobody does that. Like, using AI to learn documentation is objectively superior to reading documentation the old-fashioned way. Like, there is nothing about reading documentation, programming documentation in the old-fashioned way, like just going to a webpage and like reading through the entire wiki line by line. Like, maybe if you want to get a full knowledge, you do it once. But after that, you get to a point where it's like, man, I just need to sit here and I need to know this function. Or, I kind of remember that this library had like a function that maybe did this, but I can't remember what it was called. Now you just go to an AI and you say, hey, what was that function? And it finds it. Instead of you wasting 3 hours combing through a freaking wiki just to find a goddamn function and what the syntax is. Like, it doesn't, and people are like, well, if you were smart, you would find it the old-fashioned way. Dude, it has nothing to do with intelligence. And it is literally a waste of time to do it any other way. It has nothing to do with intelligence, because a lot of the syntax and stuff, it's not like, oh, if you were smart enough, you would be able to know like where the person who designed the function arbitrarily decided to set all of like the function parameters and stuff like that. You wouldn't know that. Objectively, the best way is AI. Sorry, I'll stop.
Yeah, and it's not just in the tech field; it's in medicine.
Sponsored by Spindrift. No, I'm just
my partner is okay. Yeah, you're asking for a sponsorship. Nice.
From Spindrift. Yeah, I just want the free drinks. Nice. I mean, you're recording this, right?
I am. I'm totally.
Yeah, that's fine. You have
there
my
you
permission.
Go. Yep.
I'm just sneaking that in on the off chance that Spindrift wants to send me free drinks for the rest of my life.
Hey, okay, get this man those drinks. He loves it.
Yeah, please.
But no, my partner, she goes to Oxford, and literally she's doing a graduate medical degree, and they are telling their students to learn with ChatGPT right now. They're literally sending them there. And you got to think of how the medical industry, you can almost imagine that a AI can take
I
your
work
patient.
in the medical industry.
Okay, all right, you could probably talk more than me then, I guess. But I'll make assumption. You can tell me if I'm right. You're going to be able to take patient history, all of their background, their symptoms, and be able to output the exact or more potentially.
No. That's not okay. Let me just put it this way. I am giving presentations right now talking about this.
Exactly.
And every single thing. No. Hold up. No. You don't know where this is going.
Oh, please stop.
Everything you are saying right now is a freaking nightmare for the corporations that run the hospitals because of HIPAA compliance.
Okay.
This is a huge issue. So, and this is another reason why every single person needs to be learning how large language models work, so that way you can host and build your own. You have to. And the reason is because you were absolutely right. That is exactly what is happening. Now, OpenAI has got a bunch of different issues that they have to work through. And I already said this before, like not all AI is stealing, right? But there are companies that use that to steal. In the same way that not all internet is a scam, but scammers love the internet, you know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing with AI. So one of the issues is, you're right, there are a lot of doctors, there are a lot of nurses that are using ChatGPT in order to process patient data. And yes, it will give them an advantage. If you want to have that conversation, yes, using it for like medical, you can get it to a point where you can train it. And there's some people that are going to say like, oh, but like, what if it gets things wrong? And it's like, I'm studying data science, I'm studying machine learning. You can get to a point where you can train these models where they literally just have a performance rate that is objectively higher than like nurses. Like you just have a data, and you just human doctor, AI doctor, and you just sit there, and it's like it objectively has a higher probability. But here's the issue right now. The issue right now is, yes, you're right. There are doctors, there are nurses that are sitting there using ChatGPT. But what is OpenAI's biggest problem right now? In fact, Copilot does this, and Copilot pisses me off. If you do not pay for a high enough tier for Copilot, everything you type into it, they train on.
Okay, so then you're giving your patient.
If you are sitting there feeding patient data into ChatGPT, it's the same reason why you notice how ChatGPT tells you not to put API keys into it. That's because you could probably sit there and say, hey, ChatGPT, generate me a random API key. And it's not random. It's going to give you one of the API keys that it's trained from before. Now, maybe not. Possibly not. But that's the issue. If you start having personal private data, and this is if there's any hospitals watching it, I'm available for consultations, just FYI. But seriously, if you have doctors and nurses and stuff, and this is why everyone needs to understand how large language models work. Everyone. Those doctors and nurses need to get to a point where they at least have a basic understanding of large language models in the same way they'd have a basic understanding of the internet, right? Like, you don't have to be a freaking software engineer, but you need to understand, okay, patient data, I should maybe not put that into the OpenAI hosted ChatGPT, where who knows where the hell that data is going to go. And the same way that you're not going to sit there and you're going to like copy and paste all patient data and like post it on your Facebook and say, hey guys, what do you think the symptoms for this mean? Like, you can't do that, right? You can't do that. So there are lots of things about AI that are incredible, that are amazing, that are awesome. And you're right, from a medical standpoint, like, there is huge opportunity. But this is why I created this community. Everyone needs to be learning about this to also avoid the bad stuff, right? Like, if everybody learns this, there's a good future. There's a future that will be dope. But it's a future that will be dope only if everybody takes this seriously and everybody really starts getting serious, not just about learning about LLMs, but learning about like everything that kind of surrounds that, and using LLMs to learn in a way that's responsible, and training LLMs in ways that are responsible. And, you know, not violating any laws. You know, that's why I really wish. I'm talking to a company right now, and one of the companies that I've been reaching out to, they have an LLM, and the entire data set is 100% copyright free. And I think that those are the kinds of companies that we need to be talking to more, because, like, yeah, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Claude, all of them are awesome. But it is, and we'll have to see how like some of the lawsuits pan out, because there are definitely AIs that are trained on copywritten material, and it's a shame and it's a problem, and I absolutely accept that as well. I mean, I'm a musician, I'm a game developer, I see that, but the thing is that I feel like that's getting those issues, those problems, which I do condemn. I think that they are distracting people from the fact that AI, the actual large language model machine learning concept, is extremely powerful, and it does not need to steal in order to be powerful. And that's why I want to find more companies that are building legally sourced data sets for AIs to train on, because here in the next couple of years, right now everybody's stealing because they're afraid they're going to be last, right? So all of these companies are taking shortcuts, and the shortcuts are stealing because they want to get to AGI. That's the thing. Right now, it really is an arms race. I think they know that they're doing something illegal, but they don't care because they know that it only matters if they get to AGI first. Or if they get to, I mean, not even AGI. AGI is such a buzzword nowadays. They only care if they just get more advanced models before everybody else does. But when that arms race is over, assuming we haven't created Skynet, when that arms race is over, and hopefully this will happen before that arms race is over, it will be possible to create AIs that are 100% ethically sourced, ethically built, and yeah, they're still going to be able to do all of the exact same stuff. They're still going to be able to create particle effects. They're still going to be able to generate models. They're still going to be able to help with medical and healthcare and just do stuff that's just objectively better. What does that mean for humans? I mean, I don't know. That's another conversation as well. I would like to think that long-term, there is more of an integration. I don't think it's going to be humans versus robots. I think that in the same way, I mean, Elon Musk has talked about how, like, you know, the cell phone is essentially almost like a cybernetic implant. It's just a cybernetic implant that's like in your hand. It's not in your body. And I'm not sitting here saying that we all need to go get Neuralink or anything either. But I am saying that I think that there will be not a very clear line between humanity and the technology that we use as time goes on. In the same way that kind of already like that. I mean, you look at a car, you know, like if there was an alien race sitting there looking at us from space, they'd be like, wow, look at all these car people. But we're not car people.
But I was just, one last question just for the viewers on this video. Do you want to share anything about your program, what you're trying to teach? And then that would be the close of this video.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to just share the Discord server, we have a Discord server and we have a website. And basically what it's going to be is it's going to be a dumping ground for all of the stuff that I'm working on. So I'm going to be building out code. I'm going to be building out models. I'm going to be building out training. So one of the things that I've been doing is I'm going to graduate school, right? So like I've been sitting there experiencing graduate school from, you know, like the quizzes and the structure and all of that stuff. My objective is to create a graduate school tier class that teaches people not just the most important parts of AI and how AI function, but also how to build businesses with AI and I've seen a lot of other people doing this, but I don't think they actually understand how AI works. I think they're just content creators that like want to just make a buck. But I want to build something that is very similar to my graduate school experience, but incorporated with all of the stuff that even, like, I go to graduate school and I'm like, dude, why are they not talking about this? Why are they not talking about this? I mean, there's so much stuff that just being a completely standalone individual researching, you can learn so much more than you even can at school. So I want to create a learning experience that is as effective as universities, but I want it to teach the more cutting edge stuff that even the universities haven't gotten to a point where they can fold into their curriculum yet. Because really there's people on just the internet just doing stuff that I meet that are on more cutting edge than like academia, especially since the stuff is just out there now. And again, like I said, the only way the future is good, the only way is if as many of us get an understanding of this as rapidly as possible.
Well, I really appreciate you doing it. I'm going to be signing up for your class, and I'll be learning as much as I can. I'll try to share what I learned, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for giving us your time to just talk a little bit about this. So
no worries, man. If you join, so this is another thing. If you join the class, meetings every Friday, and you can literally book a meeting with me whenever you want, and I will talk to you one-on-one. That's how this works. So, because I figure, like, if you join the Discord, you can come in here and hang out. But if you actually like subscribe and support, I have it mapped out where I just literally have it booked out hourly, where I know how much like I can support myself hourly. I figure you're supporting me. I literally owe you my time. You can go through my Calendly link and just book a freaking meeting with me where I will just sit here and talk to you about this stuff or anything that you need. And that's for you too. Like I love talking about this stuff, and man, the stuff I've been seeing that we haven't even talked about on this podcast yet. It's whatever your expectations are, they're not high enough. Really. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Well, awesome. And you know, guys, this is a man who has a million subscribers on his main YouTube channel. Do you want to give a shout out to your YouTube channel also? Just I'll definitely link it.
I'm good, man. I got my plaque. I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he sees it.
I'm done. You know, like I got it. I've got other big things to like subscribe to me. Don't subscribe to me. I'm good. You know, like I even told my friends, I was like, I'm gonna hit 1 million subs, and from that point on, I'm not gonna tell people to subscribe anymore. Like, and I got it.
I was meaning more that he's willing to spend his time with you one-on-one if you join the course. That is such a value add. And if you haven't heard him speak, he is so passionate about this. Like, he got me emotional before I started recording. Like, this is so amazing. The energy from this. Oh, God. I
appreciate it. I love talking about this stuff. I love, and it really is. I want to say I appreciate you coming in here. It's so nice to be able to talk about this in an environment where other people get it. Like, it really is hard, you know, even at work and stuff like this. My university is probably the most cutting edge, where people think I'm like the least crazy. But even them, I'm just sitting in class and I'm like, they don't know. They don't know. Like, we're learning stuff, and it's like, man, maybe 5 years ago this would have been like, you know, mind blowing. But like, they don't know what's next. Like, and that's crazy. And there are people online that I work with, that we've been working with, that are on that cutting edge, and it's really nice to be around people like that. So that's what this is all about. You know, I don't see meeting people and talking to them one-on-one as a chore. That's all I want to do, because, dude, if we go into this next horizon, we got to go into it together, or not at all.
and, I mean, I haven't mentioned any of our side. So blockchain is really where we're focused. And I see the integration, the convergence of all of this technology coming together. And I'm one of those people who really believe that we are in a video game. I think that we're just a simulation of a video game.
Oh, you think it's the same? I 100%. am just so you understand my philosophy. I am Elon Musk said something in his recent address where he said, learning physics means that you have to accept that you really can't know anything 100%. And that's how I operate across the board. So I definitely have heard, like, I get the simulation theory, but I'm of the affront where, hey man, I'm constantly proven wrong, so I just assume that I don't know anything, and I'm just here. Like, there's things where it's like, there's a 99% chance maybe, but yeah. But I do know about the simulation theory and all that stuff. But sorry, continue on.
And so with the blockchain, I really think that we're in a play-to-earn game. There's some objective of what we're trying to do. We just don't know. Like, when you spawn in, you don't know what the objective is. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's just to reproduce, and it's a species level thing.
We can talk about that. Do you need to wrap up the podcast though? Because like I'm just getting started.
We can keep this rolling. Like no problem. I'll cut it after.
I have a meeting in 45 minutes with one of the students.
Okay.
So him and I are going to talk about using AI for trading. So that's a big thing that's going on right now. So I have a meeting in 45 minutes, but for 45 minutes I'll go hard.
Let's keep it going then.
So if you want to talk about Web3, I do think Web3 is interesting. I know a lot about Web3 games, and I have been working with other companies who have been making Web3 games just because Web3 is like kind of taking over everything. I said, like, I feel like Web3 the same way that I feel about the internet. Like, you know, the internet, the technology is cool, and just because there are scammers on the internet doesn't necessarily make the internet a scam, right? Yeah. It's the same thing with Web3. I think Web3 is cool. I think the technology is cool. There are a lot of scammers that love Web3 because it's Web3 and there's like anonymity and like all sorts of stuff that make it nice for them. But that doesn't necessarily make all Web3 a scam, right? So like, you know, I don't hate Web3 any more than I hate, you know, like USD and all the normal like all currencies have their problems. So with that said, because I don't want this podcast to get out and there would be like,
a lot of hate. The NFT hate is real.
The blockchain. So I understand the technology. I find the technology fascinating, but at the same time, like I do go into it with a very mindful approach because of those things. But I will say, so integrating blockchain into video games. Have you launched any blockchain games before?
So I made one for a hackathon, just playing around with it. I was runner-up, no big deal. But it's really hard to get the economy.
Did you release it though?
To the public? No.
Yes.
So I'm also on the board of Illuvium. If you've heard of Illuvium, so like I'm on the council. It's like probably the largest Web3 game that has like AAA graphics. I won't say AAA gameplay. They have a lot to work on, but it's moving along really well. And that I've literally been in since inception for like the last 3.5 years working on that.
Right. So the thing, I work with a team. I have not launched a Web3 game myself to the public, but I have team members who have multiple times, and I've worked with other companies who have. And one of the things that I've seen is that creating a blockchain-based game is not impossible in terms of like creating one that's like balanced and like not, you know, considered to be a scam. It is, but the degree to which you have to design it in order to be impenetrable to bad actors, like you have to do, especially when it's to the public, compared to like a game where you have like a normal economy or something like that, or even like a server-sided economy, right? Because like with Steam, you know, if somebody buys something and it's fraudulent, okay, we'll just ban them, delete their account, and refund all that stuff. You can't do that with blockchain.
Yep.
Right? So, and now, in the same way, you kind of can't do that with, like, USD, right? I mean, you can, but, like, I mean, look at the cartels and all of that stuff. Like, USD, fiat in general, it's not the exact same thing as blockchain, but the premise is similar in some ways where it's like, hey, you know, you got this dollar bill, like, it doesn't matter if it was used to, like, how many dollar bills do you think you have that, like, at some point passed through the hands of a drug dealer? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's possible, right? And it's the same thing with blockchain. Like, you have to design something that if there is any exploitation, you have to know in advance, because it's an economy. Yep. It is a real economy. And especially with, you know, when you have kind of like the token distribution, and you have to, because that's the thing, like when you create those games, you have to put money into it. Right? Like, you have to actually build out the token so that way, like, and you have to fund all of the tokens and all that stuff. And like all of that money, like the drops and all of the, you know, if you're using it for like marketing or promotion, all of that stuff, it has to be developed in a way where it can't be exploited, because there are entire companies, there are entire groups where they make their entire
countries.
living. Entire countries. Well, there's entire, I have seen entire rings where their entire business model is exploiting cryptocurrency games that have bad models that are exploitable.
Exactly. Yeah,
and that's one thing.
You look at the Philippines or Brazil. Half, like literally, I think you can.
Yes,
look up
I didn't want to say the Philippines because I don't want to be like a bigot. But yeah, the fact that you said that, yes.
I love them honestly. For our company, we have incredible workers from the Philippines. It's nothing bad about that. They've just found a really lucrative way to get money from the wealth disparity of the entire globe. Like they're pretty much, you have like these gamers in the US, Europe, that are funding these ecosystem thinking, I'm going to play this game, I'm going to make some money.
And they can suck that
and
money
they suck it right out.
No matter how low you set the rewards, it's still higher than like other stuff that they could do. And I don't know, man, I'm not an economist. I don't even know how to say the word correctly, but maybe in some ways that's a good thing, right? Like, I don't know, you see people complain about the 1% in America. And it's like, dude, but we're the 1% compared to the rest of the world. So I don't know, maybe maybe that kind of level of equilibrium isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know. I guess that depends on who you talk to. Yeah. But it is happening. Like, whether you like it or not, you're right. Like, designing in the same way, like with Steam, right? You can set different prices for different parts of the world. Well, blockchain, it's a little bit more complicated. Yep. I mean, I don't know. I guess you maybe could, but not really. Like, it's a self-governing like ecosystem, and you have to make sure that it's impenetrable for those kinds of. I mean, I don't even necessarily say bad actors because they're just playing the game. They're playing the game right? Because it's blockchain. It's not exploitable. It's only just. It's only exploitable if you're stupid and you make a system where you basically allow people to just take your money.
I mean, they're playing the game. It's a game.
Yeah, they're just playing the game.
If they're optimizing. The problem is there are cheats that people use also. So like just like in any FPS, you could have any like point and click headshot. That problem exists so much more in blockchain, and because the developers are not. A lot of them are first-time studios that don't have AAA budgets. How are they supposed to stop those kind of cheats? And then they come in and just steamroll all of the yield in that game.
I do consultations for that kind of stuff. And I will give some very light. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but there are a couple of things to take into consideration. I do think that AI is actually going to be extremely useful in the coming years for not just designing, but also policing ecosystems like games based in blockchain. So, one of the biggest issues with blockchain is like figuring out how to create a system that is not exploitable. It's so hard to do because there's so many circumstances to account for. It's almost virtually impossible. Well, what is one thing that AI is really, really good at? It's really good at going through and like figuring out all of those like circumstances and stuff like that. In addition to, I don't know if you saw, we had been collaborating with Basically Homeless. He's another YouTuber. He's created an AI system that actually detects cheats. So it sits there and it actually watches, and it just and it's not like a kernel system. It's not installed on your computer. It literally just watches you as a player, and it's like, are you cheating? Yes or no? And it just gathers data on people who it knows it's cheating, and then uses that to reference. And in the same way that, I'm creating that thing that detects my hand so I can like mask it and like put it on stuff. You just do the same thing, but with cheaters. But I will say the one surefire way to stop exploitation in blockchain games is time. And that's kind of something that we talk to a lot of developers that are like, I got this great idea for a blockchain game. What you kind of have to do, this. There is one thing that it doesn't matter. I mean, dude, unless they do, which would be crazy. What is the one game mechanic where it doesn't matter? I don't know. This is kind of rhetorical. I don't know if this may not be a fair question. I just want to see if you'll get it. Yeah. But if you don't get it, it's probably because I'm just being too cryptic. What is the one game mechanic? What is the one constant thing that it doesn't matter how good you are at the game? It doesn't matter how good your cheat is. You cannot cheese. You cannot cheese this one thing. Maybe
it's got to be adaptation of some kind.
No, it's super basic. It's a trick question. It's a really you just got to go to basics and just think about things that you take for granted. But what's the one thing that you cannot cheese?
I don't know.
You cannot exploit. Time.
But see, that's
you cannot I mean, unless you go in there and you like create a script that like messes with the date time kernel or something. So I don't know, with some kind of hack of that nature. But for the most part, if you have a server-sided system and you protect that server-sided system where it can't be penetrated, and you're just sitting there and you're checking the clock and you know the time that the player created the account and did certain actions, that is something, because what you can do is you can create a gate where you say, all right, this person, if they play this game, they have a maximum earning potential of this amount per period of time. And that's one of the things, that's one of the issues, though, because everybody wants this stuff to be skill-based. But the problem is, especially with AI, dude, gating rewards in blockchain games behind skill-based stuff is going to be increasingly impossible because, I mean, as basically Homeless showed in his video, he built an entire freaking robot with a hand and everything that controls the mouse that was literally an aimbot that just played the game for you.
My gosh.
And yeah. So, and that's what he was saying. He was like, what is going to happen when you get to a point where you have an AI that literally using the exact same peripherals as a human is objectively better than any human player? Right? Either two things happen, right? Either you just accept those robots as players, like, because maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe then you're just gonna have robots as players, and then you're gonna have to, because it's a skill, right? That robot has now learned the skill, you know. Like,
there are games where you're actually just training the AI, and you get rewards based on how well your AI does against other AI.
Yeah, and I, dude, on a philosophical level, there's like part of me that I'm like, dude, is this whole system like incentivizing us creating intelligence? Because like even the scammers and stuff like that, right? Like the scammers, they're like, man, I hate that they locked this down. I'm going to go train a super intelligence in order to fight this. And it's like, is this like the evolutionary process where like even the scammers are like helping to like create AGI? I don't know. But that's the problem. So if you get to a point where everything is skill-based, AI is just going to mop the whole world. That's how that's going to happen. So the only way that you're going to be able to stop that is by having some kind of system that's time-based. So you can say, all right, if you're playing this game, you get, you know, like, you unlock like 15 chests, right? Like you go, let's say it's an Escape from Tarkov game. You know, you go out there, you unlock like 5 chests, 10 chests, whatever. You get to a point where every chest you unlock, even if you find it in the real world, so it feels kind of like skill-based, it gives you like less and less rewards. Stuff like that, when you have an ecosystem that is as like hardcore as Escape from Tarkov, like it has to be time-based. All right, I'm done.
But then all you do is you make multi-accounts, and then you just keep spamming it. So with Illuvium, we actually had to implement a time-based system where people would be teleporting across the map to collect resources. And so that was easy to detect. But those are the easy ones that you can then say, okay, that's cheating, that we can eliminate. And you know, you can actually blacklist some NFTs depending on how your backend set up. But when it comes to multi-accounting, it's just, how do you stop the multi-accounting and the cheating and just having like infinite bots farming that are not cheating, but they're just all just slowly chugging along? And so
what I like to compare this to is the election problems too. Like, I'm not going to go into like America because I know it's a hot topic, but like literally across the entire world, all sorts of different countries. Like, how do you run elections, right? Like, is there something about like you can have a voter ID, but then somebody can spoof the voter ID? Like, how do you get, that is the age-old question. How do you identify a person? Absolutely no question they are that person. And when you really go down that rabbit hole, you realize there's no real way. There's no real way to like, I mean, or if there is, it hasn't been invented yet. So I would say you're right. The multi-accounting is a problem, but it is still something that you can, it's kind of a damage control thing. I would say no blockchain game is 0% exploitable, but you can create a system where you can at least damage control if it is really, really bad. And the time-based stuff is easier to damage control. Because even if you do have a bot that, like, it kind of is almost like a skill cap, right? Because it's like, all right, we know that a human player can, at a maximum amount, get this many rewards. So we know if there's something coming in, maxing that out every single day, well, you know, instead of them like getting a bazillion things in the first day because the skill base like has no, you have some kind of like time gate in order to stop that. But yeah, I would say other than that, the multi-accounting, it is a big issue. And until we figure out how to actually define the difference, how do we, because that's the question, how do you define the difference between a human and a robot? And it's getting to that point where, and you look at AI now, I mean, that's a freaking rabbit hole. Because it's like, oh, well, it's this. And then you're like, yeah, but you can spoof that. Oh, well, humans only have this. And then you're like, yeah, except for this thing that somebody just developed, and now it has that too. I mean, we really are kind of getting to a point. Like I said, I don't know if we were doing the podcast yet. You know, we are at this point in time. It's crazy that we're alive during the invention of even any kind of intelligence, right? Like, who knows where this is going to go? But even the large language models that we have now, like, there is definitely at least some level of intelligence there. Is it conscious? Is it self-aware? I don't know, but you can't deny it has intelligence. It has the ability to predict the future. As Elon Musk said, intelligence is simply measured by the ability to predict the future. Even like you have input of physics parameters, like, is this ball going to drop and destroy this thing? ChatGPT can do that. Large language models can do that, and they're only getting better at that. So there is intelligence. So when you get to the blockchain thing, where it's like, how do you stop multi-accounts? How do you create a system where, you know, you look at Twitter, that was their big problem. How do you get rid of bots? How do you figure out who's a bot? You know, like, and it's only that distinction's only going to get harder and harder and harder and harder. I do think there is one thing, but it's a really hard thing. I've had this conversation only with one other company. I used to contract for a company that developed simulators for the Marine Corps. And I would go to Florida to participate in a bunch of conferences where a lot of small businesses would come together and show off the technology that they were working on. One of the companies was building a system that utilized AI, and this was 6 years ago. So, like, this was kind of before the exponential curve of AI adoption now. So they were really ahead of the curve. And they were using a system to train AI to monitor training facilities. So, for instance, like, if you have, you know, a bunch of recruits out there with, like, guns and stuff like that, it would sit there and it would actually watch them and grade their performance. Because there's, like, so many little things that even if you have a drill instructor, like, he can't sit there and watch every single person and, like, see how they were performing. They are creating an AI that would, like, watch every single person. And so it would like objectively grade their performance after the entire exercise. I went out to a bar with those guys and we sat down and we were talking about, you know, because when I was looking at their system, I was like, man, it's crazy that we're at this point that we can create a system that actually has, like, this level of intelligence, like, and this is intelligence, right? And they're like, yeah, like, you know, I mean, is it conscious? What does that mean? What is consciousness? And we, like, went down this super deep rabbit hole of, like, God, how do you differentiate the thing? The one thing that we came to a conclusion for, the one thing that, and we don't know how this integrates. We don't know, and this is going to sound super kooky when I say this. So please don't call me crazy, because I have enough people saying that I'm crazy, but then you just wait a couple of years and then all the stuff that I said starts happening. But this is the thing that we talked about. There is one thing that maybe doesn't necessarily differentiate a human from a robot, but it differentiates human intelligences from one another, and it is unique to you. At least it should be. And what that one thing is your position in space-time. So, like, and I know that sounds a little bit weird, but like I said before, like, what's the one thing that you can't spoof, right? Time. You can't spoof time. Another thing that you can't spoof, at least in relation to time, is space, right? So, like, I mean, I don't know if there's some sci-fi movie or something that's dealt with this. Like, if you were to take your, like, let's say I've got my intelligence floating around in my brain somewhere. We, for the sake of this, we don't know how intelligence works. It's just like, oh, so something in here makes me, and it is located in this point in time. It is currently 11:35 p.m., right? And I am at longitude, latitude, XY, whatever the coordinates is right here. Even if you were to come here and be in the exact same position as me, and I were to move over here, and your head is right here, right? Well, then it would be 1:37 Did I say 11? I don't know. So I was here 135. You come here. It is now 137. Right? If both of our heads were to be in the exact same place at the exact same time, well, our heads would explode because they would merge and and we would die, right? So, and the one thing, and I don't know how this would work, there is something, have you looked into, God, this is getting crazy. Do you know how GPS works? We're about to go. I don't think I'm still a civilian contractor, so I'm not saying anything. I haven't signed. Even when I was working for the companies that contract for the military, it was like multiple things removed. So I haven't signed any agreements, or I can't talk about this stuff. In fact, I think a lot of this stuff is public knowledge. Do you understand how GPS works?
It's like 3 satellites, all find your location and ping together.
Yeah, it's like trigonometry. You got 3 locations and whatever. But you need those satellites, right? You need those satellites, and they still need to beam a location. Did you know that GPS can be spoofed? Which is crazy. They actually have this freaking problem. There was a video about it on YouTube. I'd have to find it later. Maybe I'll send it to you, and you can, if you upload this, you can link it. But you can actually spoof GPS, and it's a problem. It's like an actual problem in wartime, because if you have an adversary and they understand how to spoof the satellite GPS signal, they can send false information, and they can have it so the GPS transceiver that's receiving that information in order to calculate that position, it gets a wrong signal, and it'll actually set it off. So, what do you know about the 3-body problem?
I used to know a lot. So a little background on me. I actually have a degree in aerospace engineering. And I was
sick.
I was also in the artillery in the Marine Corps for 6 years. So,
dude, we're gonna have a fun conversation then, because this is very much, the data scientist and the freaking aerospace engineer, dude. This is where what I love about talking about people like you is because there's things to know over here and there's things to know over here, but there are some things that you're not gonna figure out unless you cross-reference both bodies of knowledge. And people like you and me running into each other, that's where those things that you never thought about before suddenly coincide, and you're like, oh my god, right. So here's the thing. In order to fight against this concept of, and you know what, I'll explain the 3-body problem first. The 3-body problem, roughly, and I am not an aerospace engineer, but I understand the premise. The 3-body problem is orbital mechanics are pretty complex, but if you have a frigging sun and you have an Earth, and it's just going around in a circle, in a perfectly stable, functional environment, that is pretty easy to predict, right? Hey, I played Kerbal Space Program, right? You just sit there, you run the math or whatever. If you were to have, however, 3 bodies, so, you one sun, one thing orbiting around, but let's say you had 2 suns, right? And you had, or 3 suns, all right? Let's say you had 3 suns, and they're all orbiting around each other. To my knowledge, unless I am completely off base on this, and if I am, somebody feel free to call me out on this. To my knowledge, there is no model that can currently predict the orbits of 3 bodies in that are exerting a gravitational pull on each other.
Yeah, you can only simulate it, right?
You can simulate it, but in reality, it breaks down. And if you were, and there's lots of issues like this, even when you look at Jupiter and everything kind of has a slight gravitational pull, the levels of complexity reach such an infinite degree that any attempt to simulate it over a long period of time breaks down, right? So, but the thing is that there must be a solution, right? Because the universe works, right? I mean, I don't know, even if the solution is chaos. At the end of the day, there is a right answer, there is a wrong answer. One of the things that I'm assuming multiple militaries around the world, but our military has been trying to solve, is trying to create a system that is able to always perfectly predict your new location based on all of the previous locations that you have been. Yes. And it's basically a GPS that does not need GPS. It is a completely enclosed system that, based on the forces of gravity or whatever that it experiences, it will always be able to perfectly predict where you are an hour, 2 hours, 100 hours from the point of you having that object. Now, to date, it's not perfect. I believe they use it on submarines right now. Because in submarines, like, you ain't getting that GPS signal, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not coming through. Not with like a billion bodies of water. So what happens is they actually, I believe, somebody call me out on this if they need to. They use this on submarines. And what the submarine still has to do is correct every so often. So, it uses this, it calculates its position every day, week, whatever. It comes up, resets. So it has its new position, like GPS, satellite data, whatever. It just re-references, reorients it, and then it goes back down, and it keeps on that. The objective, though, and what there is probably many people on some kind of military payroll somewhere out there, the objective is to increase the duration of that deployment without actually having to reset that GPS. So like you can, and eventually at some point, maybe, possibly, there will be the ability to create a system that will be able to always accurately predict its location based on where it's been before. And this is really advanced, hardcore, crazy stuff. But again, like I said, whatever expectations you have, set them higher. So who knows? Maybe we will achieve that stuff. Maybe with the help of AI, we will achieve that stuff. That would be, if that were invented, that would be the only relatively unspoofable system for identifying a single person or at least a single object. You would have an object that would always know its position in space-time forever. And you would be able to check, like, hey, I am this person. All right, well, do you have your identification? Like, well, no, that person is over there. Again, we know because they have this thing that tracks everything. I don't know, maybe you could do some... But then, I guess then somebody could steal that card and run off with it. But I don't know, maybe you could do some quantum tunneling or something and attach it to a brain. But again, exactly. Like I said, the space-time thing is the only thing. And when I say space-time, I'm not just talking like kooky Dr. Doctor Who stuff. I'm saying literally space, your position in space, literally time, your position in time, where those things correlate. That is a single point where you cannot have two things in that space because that's not how physics works.
Yep.
And then, yeah, so if there's going to be some kind of identification that has the ability to but besides that, other than that, none of us could think of any way to figure out the difference between, to have a unspoofable system where people could not make multiple accounts, identity thieve, all of that stuff. But it's going to have to be a conversation that people are going to have a lot in the coming future, especially as identity theft becomes more and more easy to do.
So, yeah. So then here, let me break down how I think you can differentiate intelligences, right? So an intelligence to me is just a collection of experiences or information. So as we grew as an infant, we collected all these experiences. And you can relate that with time of when did you get these experiences? And if we could, later on in the world, like when we can actually upload our consciousness or at least be able to read consciousness, you could be like, okay, this person has all these memories that came in at this scale of time, or this AI, read 1,000 articles or 1,000,000 articles, and that was that intelligence because you can track what experiences, what information that they absorbed over a time scale.
So the issue is our only real ability. I mean, I don't mean to, we're going super Einstein now.
Yeah, this is going way too crazy.
We are outside my pay grade, but I'm going to try. Because there are opinions that this is the stuff where it's not just outside of my pay grade, it's probably outside of everybody's pay grade.
Yeah. The only I would change subject to something else if you're okay with that, just to bring up a different idea that I'm curious if you've looked into.
Yeah, hit me.
Have you ever heard of Futureverse? And this ties back to Web3 and gaming. Futureverse is their whole goal is the convergence of AI, blockchain gaming, all in one experience. And so they've got a whole bunch of patents of using, AI generated content and stuff. And they're really trying to push that frontier. And I would
Right.
just suggest, and I could even hook you up with their founder and
Yeah, I
potentially
can talk to them.
work with them or just get into that whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
But it's just very interesting. I think that you'd be, your voice would be really cool in this whole kind of community.
Yeah, I'm interested. Again, I'm very like there's a bunch of stuff that I've been researching. I am very interested in UGC. I'm looking at this right now. It does seem like there's a huge UGC component to this.
Yep.
I believe in that. I mean, that's why our game, like Steam Workshop and all that stuff, is super important. So this is definitely cool. I will check this out. But I'm always very skeptical of everything until I see
it makes
until
sense.
it actually.
I mean,
what is so?
Go ahead.
And their mission is the combination of AI and Web 2 and Web 3. I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it says it right here. Combine the ease of Web 2 with the power and interoperability of Web 3. Okay.
There's a lot of buzzwords. I mean, obviously,
I feel like you can only be. I mean, I guess, yeah. I feel like if it's
they've rose $72 million.
I'm sure
They're partnered with Warner Bros. They have the Readyverse, so Ready Player One, like that's their IP.
I used to work for Warner Brothers.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so they've got some very reputable people. They're building some.
Sorry, continue.
Oh, you're saying you kind of worked, or that they're kind of.
I worked at Machinima, and Machinima was acquired by Warner,
Okay.
and then by AT&T, which also was acquired by Warner. So there was a short time where I was a talent manager for Warner. But yeah,
nice. But they're just building some really cool things, and I'm sure that that's kind of in your realm. And what they're doing is they're acquiring a lot of different companies. And it's not just acquiring; they're partnering with companies that are developing stuff like what you're creating, and trying to integrate that into their ecosystem, so that anyone who's building on their chain, their root network, they can utilize all these cool AI tools to build on these games, and then it's just one giant collaborative ecosystem. It's kind of my understanding of what they're building.
Wow, this looks like a lot. They got a payment SDK, a marketplace API. They've got Web3. I mean, this is my brain dies after like three tiers of like features that I can't comprehend. It is cool, but we'll see. I will definitely keep this on my radar.
But awesome. Well, and this is the video's wrapped up by this point. I'm sure I'll definitely edit some
I'm
stuff
so
out.
sorry.
No worries.
This was super impromptu, and we went on so many rabbit holes.
But I will sign up for this course. I'm excited to chat with you more. I'm actually developing my own game. I'm just trying to raise funding for it right now. I'm trying to make an AI generated, procedurally generated storylines that are adapting, and it's more about adding player agency in an RPG. And there's already stuff being built like that, but I got to start somewhere, and so that's where I'm gonna try and push and learn. So, I'm gonna love working and learning from.
Well, maybe we could talk about that, because I've been what we're looking into is basically like procedural generation and stuff like that for environments and whatnot. But we have also been talking with some companies. We were talking about creating. In fact, I was going to create a prototype. I have a web application where I was going to create an AI where there's a game. Do you remember Pokemon, the Pokemon Twitch thing?
Twitch thing. I did not ever try the Pokemon.
There's this Pokemon Twitch. Oh my gosh, it wasn't 10 years ago now, right? That would make me so sad. But what he did is he created a Twitch account, and it just had a Game Boy Nintendo hooked up to it, and the chat could play it by just sitting there talking in chat in order to like get the commands. This was way back in the day, and there was no AI involved. It was literally just chat spamming the buttons, and they actually completed the entire Pokemon game by just sitting there spamming buttons in chat. It was hilarious. But I was like, man, it would be really interesting if you created a game where the only way to play it was through an AI. Like, did you ever play Detroit? What was it called? Become Human?
No, I remember seeing some marketing for it, but no.
You should go look that up. But that was kind of like a narrative game, or like any of those narrative games, like the ones they did for The Walking Dead and stuff like that, where you have like those choose your own adventure kind of games or something like that.
No,
it would be
never played that either.
It would be interesting to see a game where there's kind of like a narrative component where you play the entire game through an AI, where you use the AI as a controller, where you say, hey, do this, do that. Kind of like Zorg. Did you ever play Zorg or like Zima? Like text-based games. Oh my god!
See,
8.
I've been playing. There's actually one even right now.
How old are you? I'm not too old, am I?
I'm 29.
Okay, all right. I'm 34, so
okay. Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah, we're close.
I mean,
we're
a
close.
little bit. Yeah.
But there's some games right now where it's like Dungeons and Dragons, but they've done it entirely text-based. You're like, okay, I want to open this door, and then it generates what's behind that door, and every time it's different when you do a new playthrough. And you can set up your class, you can equip you can have a parrot on your shoulder, like you literally anything you type, it incorporates. But that's just text-based, and I'm trying to actually make that in UE5 so that there's actually some gameplay elements to it.
Dope. Well, man, I'm super interested in talking more, honestly. Just hit me up whenever. We can have these conversations as much as you want. I'd be down, so just let me know. And
Sweet.
then, we're just going to keep building, all right?
All right, man. Well, it was great chatting with you. Thanks for...
Yeah. Take care.